Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to view the Chronicles of Riddick. So it has been a while since me going on and talking about Pitch Black, but I really did want to continue the Riddick franchise, and so the next installment would go on and be, of course, the Chronicles of Riddick, and then, of course, Riddick, the sequel. So more than likely, this movie already is to probably be ruined by the next one to see, like, well, is Riddick going to win in the end? What do you think? But regardless, I thoroughly enjoy this movie. How we get a character that I feel is so much like a villainous character, and he thinks of course, himself, but he is to go on and just be like, well, you know what, because you're here, like, I might as well help you out also, because I have nothing better to do. And like, we come to find out that in the Pitch Black movie, like, this is a guy who has gone on and like been in prison and to be this intimidating character, and but eventually, because of the circumstances of the planet that they're on, he ends up going on to be this last man standing guy who then transitions into the sequel to just be like, okay, like, we need to know more about Riddick, and we need to know his origins of who he really is, and come to find out he's a Furian that is to be this chosen one of a guy that is to need to go up against these necromongers, as well as also these mercenaries that have a bounty upon Riddick's head, because he's always having some bounty on his head, because he has escaped every prison and every environment known to man. And also, his escaping, or also his running, has led him into this point where now he is to go on and have no other place left to run, because there is fewer and fewer planets to exist because of the necromongers who are to go on and seemingly wipe most of them out. And that goes on to leave Riddick with, like, well, okay, I need to go on, and I need to be the guy who can take out these necromongers, and also, like, get redemption for my planet Furia, because this girl keeps telling me in my dreams that I need to go on and do so, so I guess I need to go on, and I guess I need to do so. So, there is some really cool things going on in this movie. We have Riddick's character, who is to play the game of who's the better killer, as he has these weird, oddballish items that are to go on and try to kill people with, as well as also reconnecting Riddick with not only Keith David's character, Imam, and also Jack's character from the previous Pitch Black movie, to then have Jack be Kira in this film, and have her seemingly be shoulder to shoulder, almost as close as to an equal to Riddick in a way, but then also having Riddick need to find a way to get back to Kira to eventually see how things play out by this film with these two characters, and realizing that, like, Riddick always needs somebody to bounce off of, that he can't always just be by himself. And also, when we get into the third film, like, we realize that Riddick is kind of back by himself again, and he's just with all these mercenaries, which maybe goes on and maybe deflates the film a little bit. But maybe he's not completely alone all by himself. There is that little weird zebra dog character that he has. But anyways, so, but it's really been a while since watching the Riddick films. Anyways, so So yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was freaking great. I thought it was almost like epic. And yeah, like maybe not a lot of this is fully explained, like the whole what exactly is the Underverse and why is it that Lord Marshall has these ghost weird spirit powers and no one else does? And like I want to go on and probably just say that the Underverse may just very well be like the Valhalla for these necromonger people. But again, uh not enough about this movie I think is like fully like explained, I feel, in the dialogue, to where I'm just kind of looking to just like, are they gonna ever explain what the actual Underverse is? Um but then also there is to be the necromonger guys like, take him to the threshold and this and that. So or take us to the threshold, that's what they say. So so yeah, like the necromonger people, it seems like, yeah, like they say that they are to be dead, but then they can easily have come back. So, like, I guess that is technically like what these necromongers are mainly known for. It's like they get the brief moment of life, and they can never really truly die. But anyways, um, so with that said, let's go on and let's just go into full on spoilers about this film, as I'm to go on and to have remembered it and gone on to uh, full on get down deep, dark, deep down into it, the full breakdown and what have you. Let me know in the comments below what is to be your favorite Riddick film, whether it is to be Pitch Black, maybe it's just this one, or maybe it is to go on and be the ultimate Riddick film that I will go on and review soon, because it seems that there's probably a logical reason why I'm going on and covering these films. And regardless of how well these videos do, I'm just going to cover these movies anyways, because logically I just need content anyways. And content is, for me, really starting to run thin, even though a lot of people would say otherwise. Like, no, 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 you have like this thing that you're doing and that thing you're doing. Yeah, like I could go on and say that, but like the content, like really, like when I started doing this YouTube channel, it seemed like there was endless options. There had so many things that I can go on and pull right out of my hat and put out. Um, but nowadays, it's just like I'm looking back at all my past videos and just being like, well, like hopefully I don't go on and review something that I've already done on the channel. But then again, look at Power Rangers, what I'm doing now. Um, but anyways, so with that said, let's go on. Let's just get into spoilers. It is about that time again to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time to spoil this movie. Through the bits of full-on breakdown, I am not just gonna call everything a ship, because that could just be an easy way to just transition from naming things. But I do have a list of shippy things that are to go on and be uh, for this, and that could go on and make me stumble and fumble through a little bit of the breakdown of this movie. So I apologize for that in the beginning of this, but also there's weird, goofy names that are also not so easily to all remember, as well as also how can you know what's a mercenary, what's a slam guard, or this or that. So with that said, let me go on and pause this because it is that time again. Let's go into spoilers. All right, spoilers. So the starting of this starts out in the UV system planet 6. So Toombs is flying a ship called the Flattery C-19. And so Toombs is seemingly having this four-man group with him. And so they're going through this planet that is to be seemingly a very cold environment. Riddick has gone on to grow really long hair that eventually he will go on to Helion Prime and shave off. But so Riddick has gone on to become a burly man. And so what ends up happening as this C-19 ship comes flying into this area is Riddick is to go on and figure this out and start to thin out the herd one by one. Going on, and as this ship is to get closer and closer to Riddick is to dispatch the gunners that are to be on the sides of the ship, and there's to seemingly be Toombs and this guy who is going on inside the ship to be like, okay, all right, like, what's going on here? And Toombs is going on and telling this guy, it's like, well, hey, you're going to be my new gunner, is what's going on. So the gunner ends up going out and just kind of peeking through this door of the ship, and so that eventually ends up having Riddick go on and take him out, and Toombs immediately putting the pieces together of figuring this out, then has like Toombs going on and having face to face dialogue with Riddick. And so Riddick has gone on to mention to Toombs that he has already made a number of mistakes. And so reasonably, like, Riddick goes on and tells Toombs here, it's like, well, hey, like, you only had a 4-man crew for a guy like me, and like, it's just insulting. And so Toombs eventually is to go on and kind of look for his gun, and Riddick is like, well, yeah, that's your other mistake. Like, you forgot to have your gun where it should be. And so Riddick goes on and is to have his way with Toombs and grab him here. And so Rick now then asks Toombs, is like, well, yeah, like, now here's the bonus question, like, what whose ship is this? And Toombs looks at Riddick, is like, mine? Yeah, not the right question. So Riddick goes on and flings Toombs out of the ship and commandeers it and flies off. So uh, as well as also Riddick had to go on and talk to Toombs and ask him what his bounty was. And he first said that it was 1 million, and he was like, no, it's 1,000,005. And he ends up finding out that the bounty was from Imam from Helion Prime. I have to go on and set that up also. So that then forces then Riddick to make his way to Helion Prime. So while that's going on, we also have Crematoria, that is to be this planet with this max prison. And so we have these slam guards that are going on and they're putting this girl in this cage. They're transitioning her from one box to this cage. And so they're pushing her in, forcing her to go into this cage. And so she breaks off one of the axe pieces they have, and then she jabs them with it. And so, but they force her into this cage, and sort of like, okay, what is the significance of this? There really isn't, until we realize that this person is Jack, and that Kira is to go on and eventually meet up with Riddick in the later part of this film. So it kind of sets up eventually seeing these characters again. So Riddick, while going on making his way to Helium Prime, is to go into cryosleep. But he goes on and states that, of course, because of who he is, he's a Furion, and he has this animal side, that he never really and truly 100% sleeps during hypersleep. And so while he is going on in this hypersleep, he, of course, meets this ancestor Furion that is to go on and say to him about his planet going on and being destroyed, and needing to go on and avenge this planet. Which, of course, reasonably, this person's actual name escapes me from this IMDb, because I'm not seeing it anywhere. That's great. So we'll just call her ancestral dead Furion. So anytime that I'm to say Furion, that is to just be who that person is, because it doesn't seem to be listed anywhere in IMDb from what I'm seeing. So it didn't really seem like they took the time to bother to give this person a name, or if they did, I'm not seeing it anywhere. So we go on to Helion system planet Helion Prime. So we would come to find that as soon as Riddick is to make his way onto this planet, he's to be met by this Helion Prime military officer that is in this J. Martin, which is to be this ship. And so this Helion Prime military guy wants Riddick to land his ship because he feels that he's there illegally. And so Riddick just goes on and is to basically just crash into the J. Martin and crash it, and then just continues on his journey to make a safe landing onto this planet to go on and meet with Imam. So as Imam is making his way through Helium Prime, he's going on and hearing whispers about people going on and talking about the necro mongers, and how this, of course, is a conquering race of people who go on and have these certain conquest icons that slam down onto the earth, and it is to be the last thing that those people ever really see. And so we come to find in also the very beginning of this, we set up these necromongers, and that Lord Marshall is to be the leader of them. And so they go from planet to planet and wipe every planet out, and then they end up going away upon uh, their specific ship, which is to go on and be the uh, the uh, Basilica, Basilica, the Armada, uh, the Armada. Let's say that to be safe. So we go on here, and we have a Mon that is to make his way back home to then find that there is a man shaving his head within his home. And so that, of course, ends up being Riddick. And so he's now clean shaven. And so now, like, Riddick is meeting up with Imam. And he's like, well, hey, you know what? I thought that we were friends. Like, I thought we were allies. Like, why is it a person that I thought was my friend, like, has put a bounty on me? And so Imam goes on to explain to Riddick why he has gone on and done so, as well as also having Riddick to then meet Imam's wife and kid. And so, but Imam goes on to explain these necromongers, and that Imam is to fear that his planet is to be in jeopardy soon, as this comment is to be a sign that these people are coming. And so Imam is going on and saying that Riddick is to be a person that is going to go on and meet with these clerics and these elementals, or this elemental, to understand why he's really chosen for this whole ordeal. And we'll get to that soon here in the film. And so, but Imam is going on to explain the necromongers to Riddick and telling him that they're wiping him out. And Imam is asking Riddick, it's like, well, hey, are you even listening to anything I'm saying here? And Riddick is like, well, yeah, like, these people just, they love to just wipe things out. Like, okay, but really, why am I here? So here's where we get the clerics come in, and here's where we get the elemental come in. And so when the elemental comes in, Riddick has a knife to the elemental's throat. And Riddick is going on and telling this elemental, it's like, well, hey, when the bounty comes off, the knife comes off. So the elemental needs to go on and explain to Riddick, like, well, hey, you are the chosen one to defeat these necromongers, and it is because you are a Furian and this and that. So we have Imam's wife that interrupts this conversation being had, and goes on and states that the Helion Prime military wants to come in here to try and get to Riddick because they think that he's a spy. And Imam is like, he's a spy? No, that's not the truth. And Imam's wife is like, well, that's what they're saying that he is. So, as Imam and the clergy and the elemental and everybody are trying to go on and trying to buy Riddick time, it all is for naught. So the Helion Prime military comes in, and here's where Riddick goes on and is to say, like, well, hey, like, are any of you afraid of the dark? And so he takes out these candles and tears through all of these Helion Prime military. And when then we come to see Imam having a knife being brought on by one of these Helion Prime military men, Riddick is like looking at him, and like the military guy just runs away. So Riddick realizing, like, okay, like, all these military guys, like, it seems like they thin their numbers out so much though that he can just kind of walk away from all this. And so Imam's daughter is to go on and speak to Riddick and say, like, well, hey, like, are you here to take out the new monsters, which is to really be the necromongers. And really, she is to go on and say that because it seems that Imam had told his daughter the stories of what had happened in Pitch Black, and so Imam is like, well, yeah, like I just needed something to tell my daughter, and that was the story I told her about the whole Pitch Black movie. So we find out what the comet is, and so the comet we find is uh, the conquest icons. They're all kind of wrapped up with a bunch of these warrior ships, and so we find out this massive bit of uh, uh, stuff is coming to destroy this planet, and so we have the Helium Prime military that are in desperation to try to save their planet. So they're getting into their J. Martins and they're facing off against these warrior ships, and they're trying to make a good, solid defense, but of course they're failing. So, and they're getting blown out of the sky. So, of course, like this Helium Prime military is no match for the Necro mongers. So, we're watching the sky seemingly light up, and so Riddick is going on and watching this all happen from his viewpoint, and so Imam and his family are deciding like, well, hey, we need to go to a shelter, and hopefully we'll be safe from all this. So he decides to go on and take his family and just his family. Like, we're only going to take ourselves, is what Imam tells them. So he and his family race off to find this shelter, and Riddick, it seems, is just kind of running throughout town, and will eventually find out that he's going to reconnect with Imam and try and help him like be safe from this battle that is happening between the Helium Prime military and the Necromongers. So we go on to have the Imam family be at this point where they are uh, kind of going to this one station, and then so they go to this other like point of possibly a shelter. So the mother and daughter like are a little bit of a distance between Imam, and what ends up happening is we all of a sudden have this fight between the Helium Prime military and the Necromongers that are going on here. And so the two just military are facing off. And so what ends up happening is during this fight that it seems that the Necromongers are winning, but then also like it seems that their numbers are starting to thin out. We have one of the necromongers that has this staff that looks just like um the conquer icon, the thing that they use to completely wipe out this planet. And so what happens is this one lasting warrior takes this staff and puts it down and then twists it, and then all of a sudden the staff starts to unfurl like like a blooming flower, and is to make this huge explosion. And so Riddick and Imam are off to the side trying to hide away from this battle going on, And Imam is to think like, well, hey, like I think the coast is clear. I think they've stopped fighting, so we can move. And Riddick is like, wait a minute, like I think the fight isn't over yet. Like let's wait till it's over. And so once that huge, massive explosion happens, then Riddick and Imam are like, okay, let's get the heck out of here now. And so Riddick is going on and talking with Imam here, and so Riddick is telling Imam, it's like, well, hey, I have this ship that I have with me. Like, how about you and I kind of escape out of here? And like that's how we'll go. And Imam is like, well, there has to be like some kind of shelter that me and my family can just go into, and we'll be fine that way. And Riddick is like, well, hey, you know what? Like, I'm very much known for going on and escaping, being unescapable like places. So like this seems to be getting to a point where this planet seems to be it. So like we're gonna figure out a way to get out of here. So this pushes us on to just kind of continue to uh see the necromongers, and they're making their way through Helium Prime, and they're decimating this whole location. And while that's going on, we of course have Riddick and the Imam family like following along through uh, these alleyways and these kind of places where they're trying to figure out a way out of here. So, but Riddick and the Imam family, they get to a point where like they think that they can hide all good and well, and then the necromonger uh, soldiers and their their lenser, which is to be this certain um, this certain kind of spotter necromonger that can go on and find like body heat and spot anybody from anywhere, like a tracker. And so, like, if there is to seemingly be a person that they have to question is to be dead, because Lenzer can find if they still seemingly have any last breath of body heat or whatever. So they kill certain soldiers to confirm they're dead. So the Lenzer goes on and spots Imam, and so Imam goes on and tells his wife and his daughter, it's like, well, hey, don't follow me. And so Imam runs off, and once the Lenzer goes on and finds uh, both Imam's wife and daughter, Riddick comes back in and snaps the neck of this thing and kills it. So Riddick then goes on and has to find uh, where of course Imam is. So we would have Ergen, who is to be like this uh, kind of character who bizarrely has to have a name in this movie, but he won't seemingly live for very long at this point. We find that Ergen has this knife in his back, and Riddick is to bizarrely have taken his like his goggles off to see this blade upon this guy's back, to just be like, okay, like these guys are serious. These guys are real here. So Ergen goes on up this ladder to try and spot where Imam is. And so Iman finally, because he realizes that the jig is up, that it seems that Ergen is probably going to find him anyways, he just reveals himself. And so Irma ends up talking about his afterlife. And Ergen kills him. So Riddick goes on to try and find Imam to then, of course, find that these necromongers have kind of made their way, and so Riddick is to find that Imam is dead and go on and I think take his necklace and then put his necklace uh, on the door of Imam's wife and daughter's home. So, seemingly, since we have yet another victory upon this planet, Lord Marshall comes out of his armada and he's like, okay, it's time to replenish our ranks. So, we have this one seemingly public area that these helium uh, militia, or not militia, um, Politico and ministers are to be, or defense ministers are to be existing there. So Lord Marshall comes in with this purifier character that we'll find out later in this film is to actually be a Furian also. And so the purifier is going on and explaining about the necromonger way and is convincing these people to be converted, and none of these people seemingly want to be drinking this Kool-Aid, and so they want to go on and refuse to join. And one of these politicos go on to tell this group, it's like, hey, nobody wants to go on and join your group, like nobody wants this. And then so Lord Marshall is like, well, hey, if you don't want this, I can just collect your soul. And so he rips the soul out of this Politico guy, and he dies there. And then so then everybody, because of that intimidation factor, they all bowed down to Lord Marshall. So the only person that, of course, is not bowing here is Riddick. You would have thought that Riddick would have gone onto his own ship and freaking left this place. But no, Riddick is just oddly just standing there and just hearing this all out. So Mako is going on and making his way to Riddick, expecting, I guess, to like just have a chat with Riddick, thinking that he's just gonna so easily bow down. And Riddick looks at Valko and he's like, I bow to nobody. And so as Riddick and Valko have this talk with one another, it seems that Riddick is like, well, you know what, like, I don't really want to join your little group, but if anything, the only thing that I really want is I want a piece of Ergen. And so Valko is look at Riddick and like, well, hey, if you want a piece of Ergen, you shall have it. So Riddick goes on and faces off against Ergen. And so what happens here as Ergen is to have these two massive axes and he swings them like swings them wildly. Riddick just goes on and is to grab the knife from Ergen's back and pulls it out and then goes on and kills him with it. So Lord Marshall then approaches Riddick and is to say, like, well, hey, Ergen, he was one of my top men. And it's like, well, he's dead now. So Lord Marshall is to go on and just be like, well, you know what? Like, this knife that you just went on and you just killed my man with, like, what do you think of this knife? And so, like, Riddick goes on and weirdly takes it in his hand, and weirdly the blade just, like, flips around and flings around while he has it in his hand. He's like, well, like, I think it's just a little bit, like, just not the right weight. And so Lord Marshall is just like, you know what? I think we need to bring him into Necropolis and have him speak to the Order of the Quasi Dead, because Lord Marshall is looking at Riddick. He's like, you know what? There's something so familiar about you, but I can't quite place it. And so we have Lord Marshall that is to bring this order to want this Riddick to be brought uh, to this order, and we then go on to have, like, instead of him being brought in by force, we instead have him be brought in by uh, Dame Valco. I'm like, okay, or Dame Valco. Um, so if anything, for the rest of this movie, I think for just easy way of just, I'm just gonna call her Dame. I'm just gonna call her Dame. That'll be easy, right? If you don't know who it is, it's the girl that within this movie talks about flawless and like as if she's a Mortal Kombat villain or a Mortal Kombat finisher, flawless victory. But anyways, uh, so Dame goes on and is talking to Riddick here. It's like, you know what? Like, how about instead of like forcing him into where he needs to go, how about we just go on and just easily ask him? And so Riddick goes on and he's looking at this dame and he's like, man, like, it's been a while since I've seen something beautiful. And so Dame goes along with Riddick to introduce him to Necrotropolis. And so as she is to go on and like and show him this place, we have Riddick who's like, well, I think I would have gone on and designed this quite differently. And the Purifier is along with, um, of course, uh, Dame and Riddick to be like, well, yeah, I'm sure anybody would probably have that same idea. And so they're also going on off to the side and looking at the converters, the people who are going on into uh, seemingly endless tortures uh, and see that horror that they're kind of injected within these parts of their necks. So Riddick makes it into the area where he's going to be seen by the Order of the Quasi Dead, and so Dame goes on and tells Riddick, it's like, well, hey, like, don't struggle, like, because it'll only make it worse on you if you do. So Riddick goes on, and they end up pressing this lever to force him down to the ground. And so all of these quasi dead go on and start, like, going into Riddick's mind, and they're saying, like, oh, yeah, it's not going to take very long. Like, he's Riddick. And and so they start replaying some bits and scenes from Pitch Black, giving us like flashbacks of that. And so Lord Marshall is just like, well, yeah, I'm here to like figure out who this person is. Like, why is he in front of me? Like, who is this? So they go on and the quasi dead eventually come to the conclusion that Riddick is a Furion, like, kill the Furion. And so we then have Lord Marshall's like, yeah, kill the Riddick. And so we bring in these necromongers and they start to jump in here. And so they come in here with their axes and their gravity guns. And so Riddick goes on and he needs to grab one of the guys, kill him quickly, and then have him kind of draped over his body and then start shooting away at all the people to take them all down. And what ends up happening is Valko ends up coming in, and he brings in some army guys. Uh, we then have Riddick, who is to seemingly figure out how to use one of these quasi dead things to kind of reverse how they came in to have him sneak out. So, and that is right before uh, we go on to have Riddick, who blasts Baco, and he like flies back, and Dame is like, "Who is this guy?" And so Lord Marshall is going on and telling all of his men, it's like, hey, whatever you need to do, get this guy. Like nothing is more important than just this. So we have Riddick that is going on and getting chased by one of these uh, necromonger ships that is to end up being called uh, the uh, sarco sarcophagus class, which ends up just kind of spittling out these necromonger warriors. And so Rick is being chased by the ship, and it ends up getting taken down by these mercenaries with these rocket launchers. So we then go on to have immediately knowing Riddick know who is going to have gone on and been the person that technically saved him here, and that, of course, to be the reappearance of, again, Toombs. And so Riddick is going on and looking at Toombs and like, you have a 5-man crew now, huh? So Toombs is going on and be like, well, yeah, you made a couple of mistakes yourself. So he goes on and talks about how the ship had a locator and how Rick didn't go on and kill Toombs. So we assume that Riddick is going to go on and put on a fight here, but no, he gives himself up so easily because he's like, well, I got to get out of here anyways. I got to get off this planet anyways because these guys are after me. So we would have the mercenaries that go on and arrest Riddick and take him to their ship. So and Eve Logan goes on and does so. So I don't know why this one mercenary has a name. It seems like all the other mercenaries are just called mercs or mercenaries within this IMDb. So we have the ship that it seems is getting these unusual scans, and they go on to find that like they are going to need to send this drone uh, kind of ship out to just be a decoy so they can continue on uh, their journey. So Toombs goes on and starts talking to Riddick and is talking about all the possible prisons that they can go on and have Riddick go to so they can get their bounty. And so they start talking about like, oh yeah, like at this prison they have protein eggs, and this prison they have this, and this prison they have that. And so Rick wants to go on and go to the prison called uh, Crematoria because Rick had gone on and talked to Iman and had mentioned that Jack had gone on and ended up there. And so Rick is going on and figuring out a way to just be like, well, you know what, the closest prison to this place is actually Crematoria, and like it's making it seem like Toombs had come up with this idea on his own, but really it's just Riddick forcing this idea on to Toombs to to have him do what he wants. So we have Valko that is back on Helium Prime's uh, surface, and so he finds one of the lensers, and he is to look through this remote thing that has these pictures, and spots this ship, and so Valko makes his way back to Lord Marshall, and Lord Marshall and some of his men around him are going on and talking about the next planets that they're going on and taking out. And Lord Marshall is to have his own plan about this other planet that he can kind of wipe out. So Valko goes on and is to talk with Lord Marshall, and Lord Marshall goes on and makes Valko's specific task to try and find this Furion and kill him. And Valko is like, really? Like, why do you need me specifically to like do a whole mission to go out there and kill this guy? And it's just because Lord Valko just wants him to, or Lord Marshall wants him to. So Valko and Dame are talking, and while they're talking, it's like, man, like, what is it going to take for like finally someone to like decide that Lord Marshall to just be promoted to full dead, and like here's where we get Valko that is or Valko that is just torn because he wants to be just very loyal, but like he knows that he's never going to go on and get what he wants from Lord Marshall, and like Dame is telling him that it's like, dude, like we're never gonna get any higher than where we are, or really, Lord Marshall will kill us before that ever really happens. So like Dame is going on and telling Bako that like, well, hey, like we need to go on and we need to kill this guy so we can keep what we kill. And so Vaco and Dame ends up getting into this aggressive fight between one another, but then they also start to make out, and so Dame is saying to Vaco, it's like, man, I just want to have you go to the throne, and like I'll kneel down to you. And so the two of them make their way to this throne to come to find that Lord Marshall is going and speaking to an elemental there. So they kind of think that that's unusual that Lord Marshall will allow a elemental to still be alive. But come to find out that elementals are actually just neutral people, that they have uh, no real like god that they worship, and it seems when Dame is talking to the elemental, we'll find more about that out about the elementals, and so Lord Marshall is going on and talking to this elemental, and that is really just set up to have Dame need to have a private conversation with her to just kind of figure her out. And so now back with the Merc ship and them, of course, going on and making their way to uh, crematoria. So we have Eve Logan, who is one of the mercs, and she seems to be awake while everyone else is asleep. And she is going on and looking at, of course, Riddick, and wants her a piece of that. So Eve Logan is going on and is sniffing Riddick and looking at him as like, what a piece of meat. And so she goes on and she adjusts his goggles, and Riddick ends up opening his eyes and be like, well, yeah, like you grind your teeth while you sleep, and then immediately turns Eve off, and then so she walks away, like assuming Eve was gonna go on and like please herself with Riddick, assuming that he was asleep, but of course he wasn't. So we then transition to uh, uh, Igneon System Planet Crematoria. So we find that the C-19 ship, the Flattery, uh, is to need to go on and make a very emergency landing on this planet, because so often this planet has this horrible sun that is to basically burst people like a match, and like as if everybody that exists on it is a vampire. No, just the sun is just so blaringly bad there that it basically is to go on and like just kind of wipe out everything that it kind of blows past. And it's almost like the planet ends up at some points just kind of turning into lava. um, so then that forces like there being like an only good amount of time for people uh, to kind of make their way onto this planet. So the Merc pilot is going on of like, okay, like we're definitely gonna have to go on and make this like a really quick landing as the sun is starting to come up while they're conveniently making their way to this hangar to then land. So uh so the pilot goes on and is to yell for somebody to hit the party popper thing, and so they do. So they go on to then land, and so now we have all of these people that are to need to go on this kind of train rail like thing, and so they go onto this like sled that is to make their way down this train rail thing, so that way uh like they can go on and have this bounty be collected. So one of the mercs is going on and he's sitting on Riddick's body. So I guess because of his weight, so they can just kind of and then also there's Sophie's seats left, so this guy is just sitting on top of Riddick. So the Merc is going on and telling Riddick, it's like, well, yeah, as soon as we land, I want those goggles. And so he licks his fingers and then puts it onto the goggles. I actually legitimately own, like it wasn't a Photoshop or anything. I actually own the goggles for Riddick because I actually liked this character so much that I was like, hey, like this is such a cool, unique item that I was like, okay, let's just collect that. And it was really just like, oh, okay, like plus I loved goggles, and so uh like goggles like these like the motorcycle goggles and stuff like that. So like there was at a time where I kind of collected those kind of things because it's like a cool, interesting like way to like have sunglasses instead of just normal glasses. Is like, okay, cool, motorcycle goggles, cool idea. And then coincidentally I was like, well, the only real like goggles that I know is from like this movie, so I collected those. And so because I always try to collect like movie memorabilia was something that I had a weird connection to. So we have the Merc, and so he's sitting on Riddick, and so Riddick is going on and seeing these lights pass him by on their way down through this rail, And so he's starting to like tap his foot, knowing for every light passing. So Riddick goes on and he lifts up his body to then have the mercenary get hit with one of these lights, and he falls off of this sled and he dies. So Toombs is like, all right, like we're splitting the profits four ways now. So they end up making their final descent to the end of this whole track of sorts, and they go on to find that there is like 29.4 and 4 zeros amount of like just stretch of um this whole like from base to surface, and Riddick himself even has to go on and make note of that. So we then find that Riddick is being from a rope being descended down from these slam guards. And so the slam boss is going on and bargaining with Toombs. Is like, well, yeah, I think we're only going to go on and pay you 700K for uh for Riddick. And Riddick ends up telling Toombs like, hey, take the money. Take the money, Toombs, because you're going to regret it if you don't. So Toombs is going on like, you know what, that's a little bit light, knowing all good and well that he could probably get 1 million or more. So the slam boss is going on and saying it's like, well, you know what, one of my men, like he has this like sense for things, and he senses that like the guy that you just brought in, like he's really bad news, like he's really bad for his like juju or whatever. So like that's the reason why we're going on and only like gonna like ask for 700K. And so Toombs is like, well, yeah, but like I don't care about your your guard senses. Like I want to get more money. So the slam guard is like, well, we can have you guys go on and kind of spend the day with us, and like maybe we'll come up with a different number by tomorrow. So Toombs is like, okay. So we have Riddick that is going on, and he's weirdly like climbing up this rope, and we're like, okay, why is he climbing up this rope? But we find that the reason is that Riddick is trying to climb up this rope, and he's trying to like attach himself to this rope so he can quickly fling down this rope so he can break his his cuffs and then drop onto the ground so he can face off against all these other uh, inmates. So immediately as Riddick is to go on and face off against these inmates, as well as also some other inmates are going on and they're clanking their cups. So Riddick goes on and easily kind of takes down like one of these guys. At one point, one of them like kind of jumps from behind him, and he like goes from the back and grabs the guy, and then just takes him down. It's so freaking easy. And so one of the guys is coming at Riddick, and so we all of a sudden see this chain that wraps around this inmate, and then this inmate is to fall over, and come to find out, the chain starts to uh, unravel back to the origins of where it came from, and it's actually Kira who goes on and helps Riddick out, kind of. So, because reasonably, it's like I'm sure she wanted Riddick to stay alive here, so she helped him out. So the Gov, one of these inmates that have been here for a very long time, he goes on to like tell Riddick, it's like, you know what, like, you know what, there's some of these inmates here that kind of know what's what, and then there's other inmates that kind of put a shame to all this. Oh, that's too bad. And so but we'll find that this inmate, the Gov, is to be a guy who has been in this prison for such a long time, but he also had a wife, and he has this wedding ring, or this wedding ring, and he's like, you know what? I don't know what her name is, and then eventually he remembers what her name is Helen, and he never forgot. So Riddick then goes on after kind of beating up some inmates, makes his way back into a cell, and he's to be met by Kira putting a sharp thing in his back. So Kira goes on to then ask Riddick here about like, well, hey, should I go on and should I cut you open to your left side, like just let you bleed all out, and like having us be reminded about Riddick going on, and I think in the first movie he goes and he mentions like where is the perfect place to kill a man, and so Kira then goes on and asks Riddick like, well, hey, where'd you get eyes like that? And so Riddick goes on and re-explains this story to Kira, which Kira is like, well, yeah, like that story is a load of bullshit because I went on and I went to the exact same place that you explained where you could have gone on and gotten those eyes and nobody was willing to pay that money. So where did you really get those eyes from? And Riddick doesn't go on and explain it. So having us have Riddick realize that Kira is Jack and so Kira is to go on and tell Riddick here, it's like, well, yeah, like Jack was weak, and now my name is Kira, and so it's like, oh, okay, all right. So then we transition to Vako, and he's talking to the Purifier, and like the Purifier himself is to have doubts, to where he's almost wanting to help out Riddick, to where the Purifier is kind of interested to see where Vako's head's at, and maybe like Vako will be tempted to help Riddick. So Vako is asking Vako, or the Purifier is asking Vako about if he's ever gonna to have doubts, and Vako is looking at the Purifier. It's like, well, hey, if you're questioning my loyalty, and the Purifier is like, oh no, like it's just a really long uh like ship ride from where we're going, so I'm just kind of curious. And so Vaku is like, well, hey, if you're questioning my loyalty, like you're just wasting my time. And so Vaku ends up just kind of leaving off. So here is where the dame goes on and speaks to the elemental. And so the elemental goes on and tells Dame, like, well, hey, like, if you wanted to go on and know why, like, the Lord Marshal is to have me around, and why the Lord Marshal is to probably fear this Riddick character so much, all you had to do was ask. So the Elemental goes on and explains uh to Dame how like how Riddick is to be an actual threat to Lord Marshal, because at some point the Lord Marshal had gone on to strangle every Furian uh, that they could have possibly gone on and done so, and with the exclusion of Riddick, somehow he just slipped away. And so this whole story and the understanding of Riddick being possibly the chosen one and the only real true threat against Lord Marshall is to go on and then have Dame relay this message to Vako and just be like, well, hey, like, this could be the opportunity that we've been wanting to have the moment be flawless and for Lord Marshall to be taken out by Vako's hands. And so we then transition back to the prison in uh, crematoria. So Riddick is going on and he's showering himself down with water. And so here is where Riddick is going on and meeting up with the Gov, and he shows him his wedding ring, and he ends up mentioning about the wife that he had some odd years ago. I think it was like 18 years ago, and he's like, I never really remembered her name though. So here's where we all of a sudden have these hellhound creatures getting unleashed here within the prison. And so, because I guess it's just thinning out the herd, because uh, really all these guys care about is that uh, there's less people to have to feed every day. So, as well as also these guys just being ruthless, anyways. So, these hellhounds end up getting released, and so come to find out one person can't go on and escape within these cells as everybody's going on and gathering into the cells and closing up the cells, and they're using these chains to just hold them closed. So the hellhounds go on to start making their way, and again they end up killing one of the prisoners, and Kira ends up getting face to face with one of them, and then she, as the thing is kind of lunging in on her, she jumps from uh, this kind of balcony place that she's on to then grab this rope and then slide down. So as Riddick is to go on and try to feel that he can hide from said hellhound, and he's just kind of latched himself against this waterfall that's going on. And so Rick is thinking okay, I'm go on and just kind of be still here and hope that this hellhound doesn't notice me. But the hellhound does notice him and then gets further and further close to Riddick, and so Riddick goes on and just gets so close up to his face and just kind of does this kind of copycat thing that looks very familiar to the Pitch Black movie, where he goes on and does the exact same thing with the monsters, and then eventually figures out how to kill it. So we then turn around and find that Riddick and this hellhound seemingly have this weird connection. It's an animal thing, and so Riddick goes on and just pets this thing, and the hellhound loves him, and the Gov is looking in on both Riddick and the Hellhound. It's wait a minute, what's going on here? And so Riddick turns to the Gov. It's well, it's a weird animal thing. And then the Hellhound just starts the Gov and scares the crap out of him. So we transition to having the slam guards wanting to slam, and I'm meaning metaphorically, slamming Kira here. So we have one of the guards, and they're going on and they're having Kira just kind of have her hands against this rock wall. So they go on and they start to inspect her body, because one of the slam guards assumes that Kira usually has some blade on her. So as Kira goes on and is to have, of course, a blade on her boot, she then slices into one of these guards and kills one of them. And then Riddick is to come in and just be like, you know what? Like, I don't think that Kira's a girl that really wants to be touched. And so, like, the slam guards are looking at Riddick. It's like, you know what? How about you mind your own business? And so Riddick is coming in with this weird, goofy teacup. And so Riddick is just like, you know what? Like, you know what, Kira? How about we go on and we play our favorite game? How about we play, like, who's the better killer? And so we go on to then have Riddick, who sets his teacup down, and he tells his slam guard, he's like, well, you know what, I can kill you with this teacup. And the guy is like, whatever. So the slam guard goes on and is to be tempted to kill Riddick because he talks to the other guard. It's like, well, yeah, like, you know what, like, this Riddick guy, if you kill him, like, technically he's still on our books. So, like, if anything, have a go at him. So, like, on paper, he's technically still there, even though he's dead. So, or even though he could be dead. So the guard goes on and tries to attack Riddick here, and of course, the teacup ends up getting jammed into the guard's chest, and then twists and twists, and the guard ends up falling over dead. And so Riddick ends up going on and telling the rest of the guards, hey, you know what? You can have just taken, like, you're injured and then got out of here. And so that's exactly what the guards go on to do. They just take one of the bodies and then run off. So Riddick and Kira end up talking, and so they're getting into it. And so we find that Kira, once leaving Imam, had decided to go to Lupus 5, and she had gone on to sign up with mercs, and eventually those mercs had treated her like a slave and started passing her around to person to person to person in a very sexual way. So like, she really had to grow up fast after doing that. So reasonably, like, uh Riddick is to tell, like, Kira, it's like, well, like, you know, I couldn't have you with me because I always have mercs on my neck. Like, I will always have mercs on my neck. And Kira goes on and tells Riddick, it's like, well, like, so because, like, you decided to just not be with me, that like, you thought that you were, like, saving me, like, across the world from something. And Riddick is like, well, you went on and you decided to, like, just sign up with mercs anyways. You could have been in New Mecca and you could have been fine. And Kira is just like, well, like, because I didn't have you, like, I just decided, like, there's nowhere else to go but sign up with these mercs. So but if anything, just Riddick was just upset with Kira because she signed up with mercenaries. So the lead boss guy is to go on and want them to get fresh air. And so the base of operations goes up to the surface to get fresh air. And so once the base starts to kind of move up, we have Riddick who's kind of looking on. It's like, oh, so they do go up for air. So they do have a point where they do um, have this like, operations where they do go on and they can have Riddick possibly thinking that there's a possibility that they can go on and escape. And so as Riddick is going on and talking about this with the Gov, Riddick is telling him, it's like, well, hey, like when it's gonna happen fast. So you kind of just have to uh, just stay on my back. And so the Gov is looking at Riddick. It's like, who are you? Like what are you talking about? So like the Gov is telling Riddick, it's like no one escapes from here. And Riddick is like, dude, I have escaped from every prison known to man. Like this is gonna be no different. So the Slam Boss is going on and meeting up with Toombs, and so he's like, well, you know what, like we're gonna go on and give you like 700k, 775, and so Toombs is just like, all right, okay. So like I'll take that money. And then also like the Slam Boss is to go on and tell Toombs, as again they're not so easily just handing him this money here. They're going on and telling Toombs like, you know what, like while we are going through and finding some bit of information, like we found out that it seemed that there was a necromonger ship that had followed you here. And so we're thinking that you're the reason why they were going on and and having them come here. And so come to find out, while Toombs was talking and this Slam Boss was hearing what Toombs had to say, like come to find out that Toombs had taken Riddick from them, which of course would be the Necromongers. And so here's where we start to get this fight out between both Toombs men and uh, both the Slam guards and Slam Boss. So there is an all-out brawl, duking it out, which then leads eventually Toombs to fall into this rope, and he starts sliding down. And so what ends up happening is Riddick ends up looking at Toombs, and he ends up starting to run, and Toombs is like, no, 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 no. And so Riddick jumps on Toombs and is to tell Toombs, like, you know what, you really should have taken the money. And so Riddick climbs on top of Toombs and then climbs up the rope. And then Riddick finds out that all these people were to go on and like kill one another, because it was like a double cross, or yeah, it was like a double cross. So we then have Riddick, who is to look at the screen and see the Necromonger ship and kind of put the pieces together. So Riddick is to try to go on and find the door to not only let all the other prisoners free, but then also he finds this other door to hit this button to hope that this door opens so that way they can get out of there. Eve Logan ends up looking at Riddick. It's like, well, hey, are you gonna kill me yet? And because she's the only real mercenary besides Toombs that is left alive. And so Riddick tries to go on, open this door, and then hope that he can escape from here. So the Gov and some of the other prisoners make it out of the prison, as well as Kira does. So Riddick goes on and explains to all the other prisoners what had happened in this whole environment, like he knew or read the script. And the Gov is like, Riddick, how did you know all of this? And Riddick is like, well, that's because that would have been my plan to have done all this. So what they end up doing is they end up taking Toombs, and they ended up putting him in a cage in between the two hellhounds, and they end up going up to the surface, and they really realize that they need to run to this hangar, and they're like, man, like, we're probably not going to last that long to get to this hangar. And one of the people telling them, like, dude, we're not going to, like, last, like, 30 seconds, let alone probably 5 minutes. So, because they're thinking, like, they're hedging their odds about, like, how much time do they really have. So, but Riddick is going on and telling everybody, hey, there's only going to be one speed, and that's going to be my speed. So, like, you guys got to really, like, you guys got to book it. Like, if you guys don't think that you guys can run that fast, you guys might as well just stay here because you're going to die. So, not every prisoner goes on with Riddick here. So, they all start to run. And so we find out that there are two groups running here. There's the Slam Guard and Slam Boss that are running to get to the hangar. And then also there is the prisoners, and they're running with Riddick. So we get this run going on, and so eventually it comes to find between the two of them that they're both realizing that they're getting to the same point, that they both need to go to the hangar. And so the Slam Guards come to have like one of their guards that is to be, again, this kind of nose for like knowing when something's going wrong. So the Slam Guard goes on and tells the boss that they need to go up to the ladder to look around. So they do go on and do so, and come to find that the prisoners are running to get to this hangar. So they're like, oh my god, like, we need to go on and go to the next um like spot where we can go on and uh start to get ahead of them, so we can uh go on and then kill them, because they have this really weird like underground like sewer thing where they can go on and kind of be secretive and hide from the prisoners. And so uh, they they go on and they run to this spot. And so we have at one point where the prisoners are trying to go on, and they're trying to run, and they're trying to follow Riddick. But then at one point they end up losing Riddick, and like, okay, Riddick, where'd you go? And then so he pops up again. He's like, hey, you guys got to climb up now. And so he grabs uh, some of the people, and so they start to climb. So realizing that like they can't just run through this whole thing, they now also have to climb. So once we get to this second post, and now the guards are realizing like, okay, we're gonna go on, and we're gonna give it to these prisoners and kill them. We come to find out that Riddick is actually to be on top of this little outpost thing that they're hiding onto. And so he goes on with this rope that has this weight on it, and he ends up slamming the rope into one of the guy's faces and kills him. And then there's to be this fight out between the guards and the prisoners with their guns, because the prisoners have guns also. So Kira is going on and kind of risking herself trying to get at these guards. And so as they transition back to like, okay, we're getting back into this run, and so Riddick is asking Kira, it's like, well, hey, like, do you like not care about your life, and you're just wanting to just kill these guys? And Kira's like, well, hey, like, if I get to them, like, what does it matter if I die? And Riddick is like, well, maybe it means something to me. And so kind of saying like in one way or another that like Riddick sees Kira's life as being valuable, and so maybe she should knock off the like her trying to sacrifice herself if that means that she can just get the kill. So they continue on running, and here's where they have to go on and transition to this big, huge, massive climb. And so while they're going on and they're climbing, we of course have Riddick who's at the very top so easily, and like they're starting to see that more and more that they only have so little time before the sun is to kind of creep up on them. So as these people are going on and climbing, we start to realize that Kira is like kind of one of the kind of more of the slower ones. And so Riddick is telling Kira, it's like, move that ass, like hurry up, like come on, are you gonna die? So Riddick, the Gov, and some other guy go on to, or some other prisoner goes on to make it to the top, but Kira is now caught with one of the other prisoners, like destitute to be just killed. Because he just kind of looks out and is like, huh? And then he gets killed by the sun. And so Kira is now trapped. And so she's telling Riddick, it's like, you know what, that whole thing about what I told you about how, like, I really didn't care about my life? Like, I lied. Like, and so Riddick is like, oh, okay, I have to save your ass now. So Riddick is to go on and tell the other prisoners, like, hey, go on ahead of me and, like, give me your rope and, like, give me all your water. So Riddick goes on and he is to fasten this rope. And so he slings in like freaking Tarzan to grab Kira at the perfect time. And then they both swing together to get onto the top of this mountain. And Kira is looking at Riddick now, and he's like all like, he's all full of just like smoke all around him because like he really got crispy. So as Riddick, Kira, and the Gov and this extra prisoner make their way to this hangar, they then realize that like there is to be some necromongers that are to make their way to this hangar also. And they realize that not only are these guys pretty good numbered, but then also they have some heavy firepower. So Kira's like, man, I would just love to be the villains for one time. And so the Lenser ends up looking and spotting the prisoners, and so they start to almost head their way there. But as the Gov and the prisoners like Kira and is starting to make a plan, and they're like, well, hey, we only have so many minutes left, like we got to get the heck out of here. So like they're scrambling to put a plan together, and Riddick is like, you know what, how about we just wait? How about just wait, just wait it out? And they're like, why? Like, if anything, we need to go right now. And Rick is like, no, just wait it out. And so all of a sudden, here is where the Gov looks at his ring again, and he tells Riddick, it's like, well, yeah, uh, like I did remember the name of my wife. It was Helen. And so, come to find out, the reason why Riddick told them to wait is because the hangar was to open up, and the slam guards are getting the fuel together into the ship to get the heck out of there. So the slam guards and the necromongers are having this all out battle, and so now here's where Riddick is like, okay, the odds are starting to stack in our favor now. And like Riddick goes on and tells Kira, it's like, well, hey, like, you know that game that we love to play, who's the better killer? Let's play it now. And so Riddick goes on and he takes his blades out and he's like, all right, let's get to this. So we have the the Necromongers facing off against the Slam Guards, and the Slam Guards are easily getting taken out. We have at one point where the Slam boss is thinking that he's killing one of the Necromongers. He's like, yeah, all right. And then immediately he gets like overpowered by one of them and completely smashed. So we have Riddick and he's going on with Kira trying to take out as many Necromongers as he can. And he grabs Kira and he slings her with her blade boot to try to kill more of these Necromongers. And so what inevitably ends up happening is that Valko ends up coming into the fight here. Or Vako. I keep wanting to say his name is Valko. It's Vako. Vako ends up coming to the fight and he faces off against the Gov. And Vako ends up taking the Gov and he ends up lifting him and he ends up like smashing him down onto his knee and breaking his back and killing him. So Vaku is to go on and take everyone out, and so Riddick is going on and facing off against these necromongers, and at one point he's getting like pretty beaten up to where he's almost down to the ground, and Kira is telling Riddick, "Hey, you got to get up. Like we got to continue, even though like there's so only the two of us left." So Vako is looking at Riddick get up. It's like, oh, I guess you can kneel. And so Vako is thinking that he's going to get the final blow here. And there's all these necromongers that are collectively circling around Riddick here. And so all of a sudden we now get this intermission where Riddick is talking to his Furian ancestor that is going on and telling him, it's like, well, hey, like you have the mark upon your hand of the Furian, and like these people had gone on to kill us, and so you now know why you need to go on and you need to survive here. So because Lord Marshall had been the one to kill his people, and that's what Riddick has been dreaming about. So Riddick all of a sudden is having like his whole body start to glow for some unusual reason. And I don't know why that is. They don't go on and do this attack ever at any point through the rest of this movie or even the sequel. It's very just weird. Like it's just a writing thing that they just chucked in here just because, I guess. So Riddick goes on and does this blast like attack that knocks out all the other guards, but doesn't exactly kill all of them. And so the sun ends up creeping in. So Vako and all the rest of the necromonger guys that are still alive, they're starting to sneak away to make it to their ship. And so Kira is assuming that Riddick is dead. So she goes along with the necromongers. And so we have the purifier that had gone with Vako. And so he then is to take Riddick and drag him into the hangar so he can stay alive, knowing that Riddick is not dead here. So the purifier starts to take off all of his jewelry crap junk. And so the purifier goes on and has this dialogue with Riddick and is to say, it's like, well, hey, like, Lord Marshall wanted to go on and have me give you this message to say that if Vako, for whatever reason, didn't go on and slay you here, that if you never were to return to face off against the Necromongers or Lord Marshall, like that'll be like he'll never go after you again. Um, and he'll consider you, that like Valko had probably just said that you were dead, and he'll let that be. So the purifier is saying like, you know what, like that could be just your way out of this. Like this could be like uh, a good plan, but like the necromonger in me is saying for you to go on and take that plan, but the Furion in me, as he opens his chest to reveal his uh his handprint on his chest, but the Furion in me like tells you to not listen to that, to just go on and go up against this guy and take him on. So the purifier walks off into the literal sunset and starts to fall into pieces and dies. So we're back at Helium Prime, and so Lord Marshall is going on and hearing that Valko had slain the Riddick beast. So Lord Marshall is going on giving Valko uh, this uh, this kind of promotional helmet because of his undying loyalty. And so we then have Lord Marshall that is going on and talking to the elemental to ask her, it's like, well, hey, like, is the Furion really dead? Like, can I no longer go on and be worried that I'm going to be hearing his footsteps ever again, be knocking on my doorstep, so to speak? And so the elemental is like, well, you know what? Like, I could go on and I could tell you that like Riddick is dead, but I still feel that you're gonna go on and you're gonna meet your end pretty soon. You're gonna make your way to the Underverse, and so Lord Marshall is like, oh, okay, well, hey, like we got to get the heck out of here then. Like we got to wipe this planet out, and we just got to go on and just get the heck out of here. We got to get our armada off this rock. Like we got to get out of here. So here's where Imam, his wife and daughter, they're going on and they're kind of peeking their way out of this home, and they're kind of looking at what's going on. And so Lord Marshall is going on and telling everybody, like, hey, we need to get out of here. We need to evacuate. Come on, let's go. And one of the necromongers is telling Lord Marshall, it's like, well, hey, we have people on the grounds here. Like we need to like to be given more time. And Lord Marshall just takes this guy and flings him. It's like, no, let's go. Let's leave. So everybody starts to get back onto the Armada, and Dame ends up kind of looking on, and she's kind of looking around, and so she ends up bumping into oddly Riddick, who is in one of the Necromonger armors. And oddly, while she bumps into him, like I guess, like she senses that this is Riddick as she continues to follow this person, and then Riddick is to kind of continue to just kind of do a double take, and then that's where we see his eyes. So she figures it out. It's like, ha, like Riddick is here, and so Dame ends up talking to Vaco about Riddick being um, on the ship. And so Vaco's like, "Are you sure that you saw what you saw? Like, is it that you're just not like the mind can kind of play tricks on you?" And Damon's like, no, I saw what I saw. So, and again, here's where Dame is to tell Vaco, it's like, well, yeah, like, if anything, like, we can play this out. Like, we can definitely go on and take out Lord Marshall. So we have the planet, I believe, that ends up getting detonated as the Conquer icon ends up opening and ends up supposedly destroying this planet. So that's what I've assumed, because logically, there is no uh, future sequel that goes on and tells me otherwise. But uh, as Riddick is making his way through this armada, we have one of the lensers that is to spot Riddick because of his body heat and starts to follow him. And so one of the guards throws the lenser in front of Lord Marshall and saying, like, well, hey, like, we found this lenser dead. And so then ends up giving them some kind of clue. It's like, okay, well, we need to, like, see what this person had last seen. And so they end up replaying back the footage, and they end up finding out that there is uh, a person that is against them that is to be wearing their own armor, and they realize that it's Riddick. So, like, okay, we need to figure out where this guy is. So, come to find out as they go on and try to scout the whole place to do so, Riddick reveals himself as he has gone back into the Order of the Quasi Dead location and stabbed one of um, the quasi dead people, and just kind of have that reopen to be in that spot again. And he goes in to then uh, like make his way into flying into trying to stab into Lord Marshall after going on and taking out two necromonger guards by continuing to just kind of scrape his blades together, and then they are to look into the door, and then Riddick stabs into them, and then as soon as that door opens, he goes flying in and tries to kill Lord Marshall, but it only cuts him via like the ear and like a part of his cheek. And Lord Marshall's like, well, yeah, it's been a while since I've seen my own blood. So Lord Marshall goes on to be like, all right, okay, like let's go on and let's fight between you and I, but like I'm gonna show you my trump card and maybe give you like one last chance of like conversion, or um, give you a chance to join us because Kira has gone on and done so already. So they unhood they unhood Kira. She's wearing a hood, and they take it off, and it's like, oh, it's revealed that Kira had joined the dark side yet again. So Lord Marshall goes on and says, like, well, hey, like Kira has joined like the uh like the the converted, so like here is your chance. It's like you can like stay with us or die forever. And so we go on to have Riddick, who's turning to Kira, and Kira is muttering about how, um, like when she looks at uh, Lord Marshall, she sees the underverse, and she sees it through his eyes, and like she thinks it's all good and great and whatever. And Riddick is just like, yeah, 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 all that, but aren't you with me, Kira? Are you with me? And Kira doesn't give him a response, and then just walks away. So after that, Riddick is looking at Lord Marshall. It's like, you've killed everything I ever loved. And so here is when they start duking it out, and the elemental comes in. She's like, "Oh yeah, I gotta see this fight. All right, great, this is happening." So it seems that at first that Lord Marshall, with his weird ghost power, when he's taking his soul and shifting it around, like it seems that like Riddick is going to be beaten down by this guy just based on his weird shifting soul power, but Riddick, the further and further he's fighting Lord Marshall, is starting to figure this out. He's starting to figure out where he can find where this Lord Marshall is going, and so he's starting to anticipate where he's going to end up. And so it's starting to make the fight still very even. And so we get to a point where it seems that Riddick is starting to get still a little bit beat down, and Lord Marshall goes on and tries to rip away Riddick's soul, and Riddick will not go on and allow his soul to leave him, as Riddick replies to Lord Marshall to F himself or F you, and then he like flings back up and he punches him. So Lord Marshall is like, okay, well, hey, I'm just gonna go on and I'm just gonna take from the statue this spear, and I'm gonna try to fight Riddick that way. So we have Dame and Vako. They're watching this fight, and like they're thinking, like, all right, like this is our time. This is our time to shine. So Vako is to grab this spear, and like he's just kind of waiting it out for Dame to tell him, like, okay, like take him down when he's wounded. And so we're gonna get to that point here soon. So Lord Marshall is to take the spear and is to try and like hit this spear with Riddick, and of course it ends up kind of losing its mark. But then uh, Riddick is kind of holding on to the tip of this spear and getting lifted up by Lord Marshall, and so he ends up getting dropped that way. And so Marshall ends up trying to go on and trying to take out Riddick here, and this eventually leads to then him being distracted, to where Kira comes in and tries to then stab Lord Marshall, and like Lord Marshall looks at Kira, takes her and flings her, and stabs her into this pole that has all these like sharp objects on it, and so she ends up, of course, getting bloody and then falls to the ground. So here is where Valko has to come in, and he's like, "Get him while he's wounded." So, uh, we have Valko that comes in as uh as Lord Marshall has gotten stabbed and he's pulling it out, and so Lord Marshall is turning to Valko. It's like, "Yes, Valko, help me, Valko." And Valko's like, "Yeah, not so much. Like, I'm sorry, forgive me." And Riddick ends up coming into the perfect time to where Lord Marshall is taking his soul and shifting to this other area to get away from Vako, and instead lands right in front of Riddick, where like Riddick now has this blade where he can put the blade right into Lord Marshall's head and then break it off and kick him in the face, and he is freaking dunzo. But Vako and Dame don't know any of this is going on because they're unprepared. And Dame is thinking like, "Oh man, this victory flawless," and she's walking away. And then Riddick kills and takes the blade and breaks it off, And then Dame like looks back and she's like, no. And so it's like, yep. And so the elemental's like, well, yeah, I guess uh, he was the chosen one after all, kind of thing. And so Rick goes on to make his way back to Kira's body and asks her again. It's like, are you with me, Kira? And and Kira's like, yeah, I was always with you. I was. And then she dies, sadly enough. So Riddick goes on to then, like, after the blow of losing Kira, he then decides, like, well, like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to sit on this throne. And once he sits on the throne, like, Vaco and all the other people are looking at him. And then, like, he's just like, oh, yeah. Like, I just remembered, I keep what I kill. And then, like, all of them start bowing down to him. And then, so Riddick is like, well, okay, I guess I'm the king of these necromongers then. Great. And that transitions us to Riddick, where we see that uh, that Riddick had become this king and had become a little bit soft, and so he eventually goes on and loses his kingdom to eventually make his way onto this planet to then be forced to face off against mercenaries again. And really during that time having to like regain some of his strength that he had lost, be it just becoming a king and just kind of sitting on the throne and not doing a lick of much of anything. So with that said, yeah, I'm gonna get that out of here because I know this movie is about an hour and I think 4 minutes long or something. So I'm probably gonna try to make this a little bit shorter. I probably went on and kind of just regurgitated everything that happened in the film because there isn't much for me to go on and say besides that. Uh, with that said, hopefully there's nothing else that I probably had forgotten in this film, but I'm sure there's a billion things that I probably didn't mention specifically about certain ships or whatever. I try to avoid doing that altogether. Um, Let me know in the comments below how you felt about this movie. I don't know. Maybe it's your favorite film of all time. Who knows? Um, but this movie just so entertaining. Really enjoy it. But anyways, I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Also, I'm really happy that this time around I wasn't like so exhaustingly tired that I was going to question if I was going to make it through this review, because there were so many other times where I'm like, man, I'm doing this so late in the game of day that I'm like, man, I don't think I'm going to be able to even do the review. This time around I felt like I was like, okay, like my eyes are tired, but like reasonably I can go on and somehow get this out. So I'm grateful that I was able to do so. So now I have a video to put out for today. Uh, it weirdly just seems like a lot of times like I'm just so procrastinating putting these videos out. That's my one problem is I need to get to these videos right away. But I feel that I always want to just try to like just continue to just figure out ways to not do them or come up with like, okay, well, I have to fix these thumbnails or I have to go on and watch this one video and like, yeah, like it just becomes this procrastination or just like, how can I figure out ways to not do a video today? Is probably my biggest problem because I don't know if I really truly like at this point I don't know if I really and truly enjoy doing them. I just like I have to go on and find movies um that I can enjoy watching regardless of the view count because I'm just so crushed and defeated by that. But it is what it is. Maybe one day I'll find a video that I will actually like and it does well, and I'm just like, man, hopefully that is to be a show or a franchise because, man, that'll be one great day. So I'm gonna get that out of here. Bye, buddy. Bye, buddy.